Good morning, everybody. Today we will be talking about the root canal treatment of a central incisor. A central incisor usually erupts at the age of 8 to 9 years in the oral cavity, and it is a tooth of significance because it is the most important tooth for aesthetics. So, if there is any disease in the central incisor or the pulp is involved, we need to go for a root canal treatment. So, before starting with the root canal treatment and before discussing the steps of root canal in detail, let's discuss or let's revise the anatomy of central incisor. As you all know, that central incisor or any tooth is divided into two parts, the crown and the root. So, the crown length of the central incisor is average length is 10 to 11 millimeters, and the average root length is around 11 to 12 millimeters. So the approximate length of a central incisor in toto would be around 22 to 23 mm. There are rare cases where the length can go beyond 25 or 31 mm also. If you see, the crown portion is triangular in shape and the root is rounded. So this is the frontal aspect and this is the sagittal aspect of the tooth. As you can appreciate that the pulp lies in the center of the tooth, and here in the sagittal aspect also, if you can see that the pulp is always in the center. Now when we move towards the if we divide the root portion into three parts, you will see that at incisal third, middle third and coronal third, this is the cross-sectional diagram of the pulp. If you see, it is more large, the volume is more large and rounded in the coronal third, and as you move towards the middle third, it starts narrowing down, and at the incisal third, it tapers down. So basically, if you see if you see that this, you should have a clear picture of the root canal anatomy before we start with the access opening or before we initiate the root canal treatment. If you see that the pulp, if you see in the sagittal section or the frontal section, you can see that the pulp is at a distance of around 8 to 9 mm from the incisal edge. So we have to be very careful while we approach the pulp. So now if you roughly know the anatomy of the tooth, we have to understand that root canal consists of four basic steps. First is you have to do the access opening, that is, you have to gain access into the pulp chamber. Once we have gained access into the pulp chamber, we need to determine the working length, and after that we do the shaping, cleaning and shaping of the canal. Once that is done, we do the final obturation, which is the three-dimensional filling of the canal from the minor diameter to the CEJ. Once that is done, we do a post-endo restoration. So the root canal basically comprises of these four steps. Now let's discuss each step in detail. So I'm going to discuss first about the access opening. So let me show you the tooth that I'm going to work on. This is the central incisor. So this is the tooth that I have chosen for my root canal exercise. Particularly, the reason for choosing this was that you can see that the canal, you can appreciate the canal only below the CEJ. So it's going to be a little complicated case. Most of the times, patients with central incisors, they have undergone some kind of trauma in their young age, due to which there is pulp canal obliteration. So the idea behind choosing this tooth was, to deal with a little complicated case. So as we can see that there is some pulp canal obliteration in the coronal third. So and you can see the canal is not that wide; it is quite narrow in comparison to the normal cases. So I'll be showing you the tooth now. So if you can appreciate, this is my central incisor, this is the palatal aspect. You can see there's the cingulum, you can see the mesial marginal ridge, the distal marginal ridge, and there's a flat incisal edge. And then when I look at the labial aspect, you can see it's triangular in shape. Mamelons cannot be appreciated because the incisal edge is almost flat, and if you see from incisal to the cervical region, the central incisor tapers in shape. Now, before doing the access opening, we need to take a preoperative radiograph that I've already shown you. Though another trick to do access opening for a central incisor is to mark the palatal aspect into 9 grids. So I'll be doing that now. So as I was discussing, we have to mark 9 squares just like we used to play tic-tac-toe. So it's very simple. You mark so this is how you divide the palatal aspect into 9 squares. Now where to ideally start my axis? We have to start it at the junction of the 5th and the 8th square, that is at this point. So this junction, as you can see, this line, we have to start at this point. This is the reference point for us. And then we have to make one more thing. We have to remember one more thing. It should be just above the cingulum. So your cingulum, basically this point, is the area from where we'll be gaining access into the tooth. Now that's what I'm going to start with. Before I start with my access opening, I would like to show you the basic armamentarium required for access opening. So at first, obviously, you need an aorta. So we need an aorta. We start with a round burr. We also need a straight burr. We need a straight burr. I would suggest use a small straight burr because we don't want to go deep into the root, or we do not want to remove extra dentine or gouge the dentine. And then in the last, I would like to use an endo-access burr, which is specifically designed for access opening of anterior teeth. There are different numbers in endo-access burr. The burr size that I'm using is number 2. It has a green coat to it. So now we are going to start with the access opening. So if you know that this tooth is central incisor is little proclined, so it's always proclined, so you have to be careful with that. Now if I start, so I have to keep my initially I have to keep my burr at an angle of 45 degrees at that junction of 5th and 8th square, just above the cingulum. So this is going to be my entry point. So always have to remember, I have to look for the junction of the 5th and 8th square just above the cingulum, and at an angle of 45 degrees with my small round burr, I am going to start with my access opening. So now I am going to start my aorta. So we just have to penetrate, and if you see now, complete the diamond part is going into the tooth completely. This is the point where I have to stop. That's so after I've gained an initial access into the pulp, now I've made an entry. I'm going to stop here. Once I've gained an access into the chamber, once I've gained access into the pulp chamber, not exactly into the pulp chamber, I've removed some amount of enamel and dentine. So now I'm going to shift my burr. I'm not going to continue with the round burr because that can cause extra gouging of the tooth, or it will remove excess dentine. So I'm going to shift to my straight burr now. So I'm going to earlier I was using my burr, I was placing my burr at an angle of 45 degrees. Now slowly from 45 degrees I have to go to 90 degrees because I have to follow the inclination of the root. So now it will be more straighter. So once I have gone in 4 mm into the length of the burr is around 5 mm. So once I go once I go into the pulp chamber, 3/4 of the burr, I have to stop and check. Here I have still not found any drop. Usually you will get a drop at this point, but as I showed you in the preoperative radiograph that the pulp canal is obliterated, so we might not get a drop so easily. So here we have to stop, we have to remove the burr, and now we have to use another important instrument for access opening, and that is your DG16. So this probe is a double-ended instrument. So this DG16 is a double-ended instrument, you can see, and it has a sharp tip and it has a long shank. So this will help you to scout or look for the pulp chamber. So if I try with this, I'm not getting a clear cut catch, so I'm going to keep excavating with this. So I think I'll go a little deeper. So I'm going to change my burr again, because this is a 4 mm burr. It cannot penetrate any further. So now I'm going to use my endo axis burr, but with a lot of caution. So I'm going to use my endo axis. The direction will almost be the same as in that case, as in the case of the straight burr. It will be almost at an angle of 90 degrees only now to the CEJ. So again, I'm going to stop. We do not use the burr vigorously. We have to be very careful, and we have to use the burr and then again stop and check for any drop. So now I will start with my 15 number or 10K file. This is the file. I'm going to look for the canal. So yes, now I can easily go into my canal. So that's how you start. Sometimes if the calcification is too much, or it's a heavily constricted canal, you might not be able to negotiate the pulp with a 15K. You might have to use a 10K. You might have to start with an 8K. And sometimes these K files don't work because they are made up of stainless steel. You can go for C pilot files, or you can go for D finders. They are made up of carbon steel, and the tip is quite taut there. So sometimes to navigate those constricted canals, you might have to go for C pilot or D finders. In our case, we were lucky; we could easily negotiate with a 15K file. So if you see clearly now, with this 15K file, I am easily able to traverse the canal. So the first file that you put into the canal, it's called the initial binding file. Now you have to, once you put the file into the canal, you let it go to the point where you start feeling some constriction. So at this point, you will apply a stopper, and you are going to rush and take a radiograph. So radiograph would give you the estimated working length, which has to be again checked by the apex locator. So here I can easily calculate my working length because this is an extracted tooth. So I think I have to choose a correct reference point. A reference point holds a lot of significance in endodontic treatment. So we have to choose a reference point which we can easily replicate in all the other appointments. So a reference point should be intact. It should not be a point on the tooth which we are going to remove in the future. So it has to be an intact point. So now if I calculate the approximate working length with the help of this rubber stopper, so I'm going to take out my file, and this is the endo gauge. You all are aware of this. So I'm going to measure my length, and it comes around 19 mm. So this is the approximate length. So but again, I'm telling you, if you have to confirm your working length, the first file which goes, let it go freely into the canal, quickly take a radiograph and then check. If it goes up to your apical foramen or your radiographic apex, now you have to recheck it with the apex locator. Apex locator is a must. Now we've got a rough length of around 19 mm. So I'm going to use all my files in that way. Now once I have gained access into the pulp chamber, now my next step is establishing my working length, which I have done. I could easily do it here because it was a extracted tooth, but either you have to take help of an apex locator or you have to take your radiograph. So now I'll move on to the next steps. Now the next most important step is that you have to debride the pulp chamber and the root canal. And how do you do that? You do it by two methods, mechanical and chemical. So mechanical will include your hand files, your rotary files, and chemical would include your irrigants. So we in the process of cleaning and shaping, the three most important irrigants that we use, or this should not be missed, are sodium hypochlorite. The concentration can range from 3% to 6%. Please apply a rubber dam before all root canal procedures. It is mandatory as you are using hypochlorite, which can be very toxic to the tissues. And then another irrigant that we are always using is saline. It acts as a buffer and it acts as a flushing agent. And then the last irrigant, or before the last irrigant, you can use liquid EDTA. Liquid EDTA is a weak chelating agent and it helps to soften your debris, and it can use to remove the inorganic portion, as hypochlorite is only going to act on the organic portion. So if you want to remove the inorganic portion, the smear layer in the walls, that has to be done by a liquid EDTA. So how to use these irrigants, now we are going to discuss that. So this is hypo that I am going to use. This is one of the primary ingredient that you have to use, and the irrigant that you have to use. And then this one is saline. Your normal saline is easily available. And I have another irrigant which is liquid EDTA. So this I have kept in a separate syringe. This we are going to probably use in the end. So now irrigation, for irrigation you require a side vented needle. So you have these syringes that are available in the market. Most of the clinicians are using the syringes for LA for irrigation. No, they are not to be used for irrigation. For irrigation, you have to remove this tip and you have to attach this side vented needle. So this side vented needle has an advantage because it's quite flexible and it is quite thin. It's not that thick as in comparison to the needle that we are using for LA. Then it has a side vent, so it reduces the chances of periapical extrusion of any irrigant. So in terms of safety, this is the best irrigation needle that you can use. Now the gauge of this needle, the side vented needle, is also available in different gauges. It can vary from 20 to 30 gauge. The one that we are using is 30 gauge. So it's a 30 gauge side vented needle, single vent. You can go for multiple vents also if you want to use them, but single for now we are using our single vent side vented needle. So before, now once I've established my working length and I start with my BMP, the first thing that I'm going to use is, I'm going to start with hypo. I will take 1 to 2 ml of hypo and trickle it down into the pulp chamber. Now if you see, the axis, the shape of the axis has to resemble the external anatomy of my tooth. So if my tooth is triangular in shape, as we discussed earlier, we might have to enlarge, or we might have to enlarge the axis opening as well. So I'm going to make it a little triangular before I proceed any further. So if this is the time where you can correct your axis opening. So I'm going to just make it into a triangular shape as we see. Do not overdo the axis cavity, but at the same time do not go for ninja axis or a very conservative axis, because at the end we have to gain access into the root completely. So you should go for a axis which allows good penetration, good accessibility and visibility. So now if you see, my irrigation needle can go easily and I have no hindrance. So this is the kind of axis we should aim for, because there is no point of an axis where your irrigation needle cannot go completely. So you can apply a stopper to your irrigation needle. So this kind of stopper you can apply to your irrigation needle, and you can use your irrigation needle 2 mm short of the apex. So I'm going to apply a stopper so I know the exact length to where I have to irrigate. So again I'm going to mark this. So my length was 19 mm, so I'm going to stop at roughly 17 mm. So this allows me to use my irrigant safely. As you know that hypo should not penetrate or should not go beyond the periapical foramen. So I can freely irrigate. Now, once I am able to get this, now it's the time to start with my biomechanical preparation or shaping or cleaning. Never file into a canal which is dry. It has to be filled with your irrigant. It can be, initially I would like to use hypo, but you can use saline if you're not using a rubber dam. So now after 15, again I will establish my working length and I will use it here. I have checked it, and then so now I'm going to enlarge with 15. After 15 we are going to use 20 number up to the complete working length. All the teeth you have to at least, even if you are planning to go for rotary shaping and cleaning, you should use 10, 15 and 20 number files, because the initial patency or the initial glide path that you have to establish, you should establish with your hand files and then move on to your rotary files. Here we are discussing pro taper technique, and we're going to discuss hand files. So I'm not going to discuss about rotary files. So there are two ways by which I can obturate or I can do the BMP. One is you can use your hand pro taper files. Hand pro taper files are these. They have progressive taper. They are called pro taper because of progressive taper. So we start with SX, then there's an S1, there is an S2, F1, F2, F3. So we have, in the hand pro taper system, we have an orifice opener, orifice shaper. This is the first file for pro taper system. Now this system, this length is approximately 19 mm and the taper is around 12 to 12%. So the tip is 0.19 mm in diameter and the taper is 12%. So this is used just 3 to 4 mm beyond the orifice, not up to the full length. You should not use your SX up to the full length. You just have to enlarge your orifice with this. After using your hand files up to 20 number, you move on to your pro taper technique, because we should neither go with step back or your clamp down technique, but we should use a hybrid technique. In the hybrid technique, we have hand files up to 20 number up to the working length, and then we start enlarging the orifice with an SX. This has to be used only 3 to 4 mm beyond the orifice. So never push this. The only aim of this file is to enlarge your orifice so that you can get good accessibility into the canal. So once this is loose, again go back to irrigation. After every file you have to irrigate, because you need to remove the debris. Now the next two files are in the sequence are S1 and S2. The purple one is S1 and the white one is S2. Again, these two files, they have a progressive increase in the taper from the tip towards the coronal third of the file. If you can see, these pro tapers are quite flexible. So these pro tapers are available in different materials. This is the material that I am using is night dye. You have stainless steel also. Earlier we were relying a lot on stainless steel, but now we have night dye, which is much better in terms of flexibility. It can be used in curved canals also. So you can go for night dye pro taper. So for anterior teeth of a central incisors, I generally recommend to use 25 mm, because the average length of a central incisor is around 22 to 23 mm. So this first we have to use S1 file. Now how to use this S1? This S1, you just have to put it in the canal and let it glide easily without applying any pressure over here. No pressure to be applied. And then slowly it can go. This is the working length. You can see right now it is a little short of the working length. No issues. Just up, down, up, down, up, down slowly. And you can go for watch winding as well. That is clockwise, anti-clockwise slowly. And then again you have to irrigate. So a lot of irrigation has to be done. So irrigate it. We have already We need to irrigate at every point, and now again you have to use your file. Once we have used our S1, the next file that we use is S2. Now this S2 file is again almost of the same diameter, just slightly larger than S1. Now as you can see, I'm slightly going and trying to take the file further into my canal. So I'm going watch winding. Never push the file. See, this is an absolute no. You have to be, by doing this, you're applying too much pressure and you're actually extruding the pulp tissue or all the necrotic elements into the into your beyond your apical foramen. So you have to be very gentle. With endo, you need a lot of patience. So slowly, gradually, I'm going watch winding, and reaching my correct working length. So this now once I've reached my working length with my shaping files, that is S1 and S2, now I have to move to my finishing files. So again slowly, without applying any pressure, going up to the minor diameter or the point to where I have to obturate. Now again I have to irrigate thoroughly. So that's how I irrigate. You can see this is the orifice. Now the first finishing file that we have is F1. This is a finishing file. This is at this point, if it is a narrow canal, we can finish at this point. But since it's a central incisor where the initial binding file was 15, we have to use larger protapers. So F1 is easily going up to the working length. I did not have to do much. That is because of the large volume of pulp chamber. So as you can see, now once I have taken out this file, the next thing that I have to do is again irrigate with a side vented. Now I move on to my F2, which is red in color. See, this is also easily going up to the working length. I don't have to do much. Again irrigation. So I'm going to use my F3 now. F3, I felt slight restriction. So I'm going to again go slowly up to the working end. It's not going completely. So I'm going to go watch winding, straight, watch winding, take out my file, irrigate. In between, you can also use your 20 number. This is called recapitulation. You are trying to re-establish the patency. Sometimes what happens is, if we do not irrigate properly, there is debris that gets clogged into the apical third and you're not able to reach your working length. So for that, you have to use smaller number files in between up and down motion. So again, I'm going to re-irrigate and go back to my F3 and see if it is seeds. Now it is going to the working length. But if you see, this F3 file has a tip diameter of 0.30. Now I'm going to go and take a radiograph with this F3 and then show you. I have taken the radiograph and now you can see it is going up to the radiographic apex. Ideally, we keep the master file or your final master cone 0.5 to 1 mm short of the radiographic apex. Now this is the size F3 that I have prepared. There are other sizes available, like if F3 is loose, you can go for, now in this scenario F3 is quite snugly fitting. So if your F3 is loose, you can go for F4, you can go for F5. F3 has a tip diameter of 0.30, F4 has a tip diameter of 0.40, 8% taper, then F5 has a tip diameter of 0.50. So if we are treating a central incisor of a younger population, F3 would not be enough. You might have to go for F4, F5. And if you're treating a tooth of older population or in a case like mine, where there was obliteration in the pulp chamber, here F3 is enough. but mostly 70 to 80% of the cases you have to go for F4 and F5, that is 0.4% or 0.40 tip diameter or 0.50. In Pro Taper, it's one of the most easiest ways of doing the shaping and cleaning. Why? Because you just have to use these files, and the last finishing file that you use, you have to take the corresponding GP F3 and obturate with the same cone. This is the single cone technique, but the problem with the single cone technique is sometimes that because the canal, as you see, as we discussed the cross section of the as we discussed the cross section throughout the canal or throughout the root of the tooth, you can see that it's not uniform. If you see in the coronal 1/3, it is ovoid. It's not round exactly, it's more of ovoid, and then it becomes round and then it tapers down. So sometimes a single cone would not suffice, and you have to do a technique like step back followed by lateral compaction. So I'm also going to discuss lateral compaction because most of the cases your single cone would not suffice. So how to proceed with step back or using your hand files. So if we have to, now I have shown you with Pro Taper. Now I'm going to move to your step back technique, which is also known as telescopic preparation. So how do you do that? Same thing. 15. We used a 15 number file. We established the working length using a 15 number. Then you go to your 20 number up to the working length, and similarly you will go with the. You'll use a 30 number. Then you will prepare up to. Since initial binding file was 15 numbers, so you prepare up to, you have to use 3 sizes larger than that. So I've chosen a 40 number file up to my working length. So this is your 40 number file. First, I'm going to select my working length, again 19 mm, as you can see. Now, this is my master file that has to go up to the full working length. So this is my master file. So 15 was my initial binding file. I increased to 3 to 4 sizes more. I chose a 40 number as my master file. It is snugly fitting into my canal up to the working length. Now, when you are doing step back or when you are doing this technique of biomechanical preparation, we have to be using the file in up-down motion also, because you need to clean the chambers and at the same time you have to enlarge it. You have to create a tapering shape. So you have to go like this, up, down, not violating the working length at any given point of time. And then the next thing you do is, now you start stepping back. Once you have chosen your master file, now you start stepping back. Now you use a 45K file, but it won't be at the same length. It will be at a length 1 mm shorter. So earlier my length was 19 mm. So now I'm going to use my 45K file at a length of 18 mm. So, and again, vigorous up, down, because I have to create a funnel shape which is broader at the coronal end and narrower at the apical end. And again, do not forget irrigation. So after 45, I'm going to use my 50K file. This is 50. And now I'm going to again reduce my working length. It will be around 17 now. So loosen my file. It has to, you keep on using the same file till it gets loose up to 17 mm. So after 50, again irrigate. And then we move on to 55, 1 mm short of the working length. This is 55. So we have come down to 16 mm now. So next you move on to your 70, 80. So we have these files 70, 80. You can also go up to 100 mm, 100 number also. So maximum, most of the times up to 80, you step back up to 80, and once you step back up to 80, you will reach the coronal third of the canal. You'll be into 13 to 14 mm, and that's the amount of preparation we need. So now I'm going to just show you. I have not used 80 number here because I'm using my single cone technique. I do not want to do unnecessary preparation, but I have shown you how to do step back. So when you're doing step back, you have to do lateral compaction. You have to use an 80, you have to use your master cone, you have to use spreaders along with GP. So if I have to use my, if I have to do lateral compaction, then what I have to do is, I have to get my 2% GP. So now the armamentarium for lateral compaction is, you require 2% GP. So this 2%, my master cone was 40, so I need exactly 40 number GP, which is 2%. And for accessory cones, I need these smaller number accessory cones like 25, 30, 35. And to place these accessory cones, you need spreader. I would always suggest to use a spreader of size 35 or 40, and then use a GP smaller than the spreader. And then you need your paper points, whether it is single cone or it is your lateral compaction. So I'm just going to show you how we have to check our master cone. So I have to choose my master file was 40K. So I'm going to choose the exact GP. This is 42%. So 2% GP, if you see, it has 2% taper all over. Now I have to place it into my canal, and I have to check the tuck back. So it should not come out easily, it should have some kind of resistance. So if the tuck back is fine, then you can go ahead with obturation. So it's not coming out very easily, I can feel some resistance. So this is the tuck back that you need, and at the same time, you have to check whether this tuck back is from the apical end or from the middle third. So for that, you need to take a radiograph. If your GP fits well to the working length, and you are getting resistance from the apical end, you are good to go. But if you are getting a tuck back but GP is short of the working length, then you are not right, you are going wrong somewhere in your master file, and you have to do the BMP or the shaping again with your hand files. Now what you have to do next is, once your master cone is done, you have to you have to use your sealer. You have to place the sealer into the canal, and you have to use spreaders. So I'm using a larger spreader, I'm using a 40 number spreader. Now if you see, how is a spreader different from a file? It is completely plain. There are no there are no crisscross striations over here. So I'll place my so I fill my canal with the sealer, and then I'm going to place my master cone. Master cone has a tuck back. Now I'm going to place my spreader, and this technique is called lateral compaction. So what you have to do is, you have to compact it laterally, and you have to create space for the smaller GPs. So the smaller GPs, you can use this 20, 25, but do not use a 40 number GP, because you won't be able to place it properly. So if you're using a 40 number spreader, you have to use a 30, 35 number GP. So now leave the spreader there, exert some lateral pressure, and then you use your 30 number. You take out your spreader, and you'll place the space that you have created, you will place your 30 number. Okay, so that's how you keep on placing your accessory cones. Now again, you place your spreader. Again, place your spreader, create some space, push the GP laterally, and then in that space created you have to fill another GP which is which is smaller than your spreader. So that's how you keep on filling until you can no longer place your spreader into the canal, and then you seal it at that level. So this was one technique of obturation which is called lateral compaction. So whenever you're doing step back, you better do lateral compaction. Now here in our case, we are going for a pro taper technique. So the GP is going to be completely different. So I'm going to use pro taper GP. So pro taper GP, just like their shaping file, their finishing files, they have the same corresponding taper. So I'm going to show you the pro taper GP now. As I was discussing about the different files, finishing files, we have F3, we have F1, and we have F2. So similarly, we have the same corresponding GPs. So if you finish at F1, you have to use F1. So if you finish at F1, so this is the F1 GP that you can use. If you finish at F2, then this is the F2 GP, corresponding GP that you have to use. And if you finish at F3, like we finished at F3, you have to use F3 GP. So with the single cone, you have to rely a lot on the irrigation strategies. So we were using a side vented needle all throughout, and now I'm going to tell you what we have to do before finally obturating or sealing the canal. So you can use you've used a lot of hypo and saline. Now the last thing that you do is, before finally sealing, you have to apply some kind of weak chelating agent. So here in this case, again, I'm using liquid EDTA. Just 1 ml I have to dip, 1 ml, and now I'm going to use an agitation device along with this. So I discussed that now we placed a weak chelating agent. We've used liquid EDTA in this case. Throughout my video, I have not been using gel EDTA. If you want to use EDTA gel, you can use it for hand files. Please do not use EDTA gel while using rotary files. You can lubricate your files, but since I have used a lot of hypo, so I have not used EDTA gel. So I'm using liquid EDTA in the end, and now I'm going to agitate this. This is your ultrasonic scaler. This is your ultrasonic tip, and if you see, it is creating acoustic and cavitation inside the canal. So before you do the final obturation, you need to stir your irrigant well so that it reaches all the dentinal tubules and you're able to remove the smear layer properly. So you need to agitate for a good 30 seconds. So you go up, down, up to the working length. So once you've done this agitation, now again you need to irrigate it. You need to rinse off all the debris. So this is the last irrigation that I do with saline. Now I'm going to use my paper point. If you have prepared till F3, then you should use F3 paper point. So you have to dry off your canal well. You can see then you have to examine the paper point. The paper point should be free of any blood, debris. So if my paper point is clean and dry, now I can go ahead with my obturation. So the next thing that I do is I use my sealer. So I use injectable sealers. You can use your ZOE based sealers, you can use your resin based sealers, but I feel injectable sealers are the best option. You just press it and then cut. For single cone technique, you should always use your bioceramic sealers because of their good flow and good consistency, they are able to seal well. So if you see, I'm going to inject my sealer, and you can see thoda, so if you see, so you can see some white. You can see the area which was earlier black, it is filled by the sealer now. Once you see the sealer in the canal, you can take your GP, your master cone which you've already selected, and use a pumping motion, not vigorous pumping but slight pumping motion. And now you have to remove the excess GP, or now we do the shearing off. So the instrument that I am using is an obturation pen by Woodpecker. This is an electric device and it heats up to 180 degrees Celsius. So I'm going to use that to shear off my remaining GP. So this is the tip, and I'm going to So once you have done this, now the very important step here is that we have to remove the GP up to the CEJ level. So now I'm going to use my hand plugger, which comes by the company name of Buchanan. This is a very good plugger. So once you have used your obturation pen, now you condense it properly with your plugger so that your GP goes up to the level of goes below the CEJ or better, because you need space for post-endodontic restoration. So that's how you seal. You know your GP is well below the CEJ, and I'm going to take a final radiograph to show you how the obturation looks like. So now if you can see that your GP, it is going up to the it's going up to the radiographic apex. I've kept it purposely short, 0.5 to 1 mm short of the radiographic apex, because sometimes the radiographic apex will not give you the correct minor diameter. We need to obturate till the minor diameter, and radiographic apex and your minor constriction do not always coincide, so we have to be careful of that. So this is a single cone obturation with a bioceramic sealer. What you have to note is that the GP is below this CEJ, because you need space for your post-endodontic restoration. So we have completed the root canal treatment. Now all you have to do is wash off the sealer with the cotton dipped in ethanol, and once the excess sealer is wiped off, you can proceed with your etching, bonding and post-endodontic restoration. So this again is the access cavity of the central incisor, triangular in shape, resembles the external anatomy of the tooth. Whenever you are proceeding with the root canal treatment of central incisor, just remember these 9 squares that you have to make. Once you make these 9 squares, the access opening is going to be very easy, and the first step, if it's done correctly, you will have no problem in the following steps. Thank you. So, as we were discussing, that mandibular central incisor or mandibular lateral incisor can have different variations, as in it can have a single canal, single root, or it can have 2 canals in one single root. So, as you can see, this is one of the variations where I have done, instead of a triangular axis, we've gone for a more ovoid axis. So, it's more oval in shape, if you can see. So here I have extended from the cingulum and gone a little more incisal. So in this scenario, we can see 2 orifices which are actually going to merge into one. So this is another variation that we should know for mandibular central incisor or mandibular lateral incisor. As 70 to 75% cases, you will see that the mandibular central incisor or lateral incisor ends up having 2 canals, and these can be very easily missed out. and most often we realize that the canal has been missed out once the patient comes with pain. So it's always important to know that we can have two canals and it's going to look like this. So I'll show you the canal. So that there's going to be a there's going to be a labial canal, and there's going to be a lingual canal. So if you see clearly, you can see two openings in the canal. So this is a microscopic view that I'm showing you, and it has been recorded at 2.5x magnification. That is why we can see it very clearly. But when we are doing it under naked eyes, most often we skip this. So if you see clearly, you can easily see two orifices. Now if I show you the root, you can easily appreciate that there are two canals and they're going to end up as one. So at the apex, there are going to be two canals which are going to end up at one apex. So the configuration would be 2:1. So we should not miss out the variations in mandibular central incisors. Therefore, I am showing you the microscopic view. A very warm good morning to all of you. Today we will be discussing about the access opening of mandibular central incisor and lateral incisor. Mandibular central and lateral incisors are one of the most complicated teeth. Why? Because they have the narrowest mesodistal dimensions. So, and they are the smallest teeth in your whole oral cavity. So we have to be very careful at the first step, that is access opening. You have to obviously use smaller size burrs. Then there is another thing that we should know. We should know about the variations of mandibular central incisor. As you can start, the basic, mostly we see one root in all the mandibular central incisors, and we will see one single canal. And as you can see, it is the cross section. If you see the cross section of the root canal, it is more roundish, and then it becomes oval in nature, because as we go towards the apex, you will see that the tooth becomes narrower. Therefore, we have to be very careful when we are working on mandibular central incisors and not use extra taper files or greater taper files, because the loss of pericervical dentine in those areas will be more. So we have to keep that in mind. Another variation that I will show you of mandibular central incisor is that a mandibular central incisor can start as one single canal, and then in the same root it can split into two canals, and once it splits into two canals, and later on it becomes one. So there can be one root with this two canals ending into one apex, or there can be two roots with separate canals. So very often we miss out this variation. So for that we need to take multiple radiographs at head-on angulation and mesial and distal angulation. If we take radiographs at these angulations, there are very less chances that we will miss out these canals. So moving on to your mandibular central incisor. So I'm going to show you I'm going to show you the access opening. It is very similar to your maxillary central incisor. So again, we are going to divide the lingual surface into 9 squares. I have already done that for you. And just above the cingulum, at the junction of 5th and 8th square, we are going to make an entry point. Again, we are going to use our round burr, and if you can appreciate the size of the burr, it is the smallest round burr that you should use. Why? Because again, the teeth are very small. So in order to avoid gouging or any other procedural error, try to start with small burrs, and then you can shift according to the size of the tooth. So again, I'm going to make an entry point at an angle of 45 degrees just above the cingulum at the junction of the 5th and 8th square. I'm going to let my burr go completely inside. So that round, if you see this round part, the diamond part has to go completely inside. So once it has gone completely inside, I'm going to stop at this point, and I have to change my angulation from 45 degrees to 90 degrees. This is a very important step. In case I am not able to do so, I will end up creating a labial perforation. So at this step, we have to change the angulation. So now I'm going to change my burr as well. I'm going to shift to a straight burr, small straight burr. So I'm using the small straight burr now. So as I said, now my angulation is going to shift from 45 degrees to 90 degrees till I feel a drop. So I immediately got a drop. The best part about using a small straight burr is that the length of the diamond part is just 4 mm. So in these, because the length is just 4 mm, I will not go deeper into the canal and I will not lose on pericervical dentine. So as you can see, the debris is also coming out along with the tooth, if you can, along with the burr. So we have entered into the pulp chamber. When the tooth is going to be vital, you're going to encounter a lot of bleeding. So the first step, once you do the access opening, should be irrigation. You have to use your hypo, you have to use saline to remove the debris, because if you're not able to visualize your orifice, there's no point going ahead. So I'm going to irrigate at this point. So I'm going to, as I said in the earlier video also, I use a side vented needle. This is a side vented flexible needle. So I'm going to irrigate at this point, just the coronal 1/3, and I'm going to try to clean my pulp chamber. So once that is done, now again I'm going to just have a close look at my axis. Okay. So अभी record नहीं करना. So now my axis is more of roundish in shape. I have a choice. Either I make it triangular, just like I did for central incisor, but instead of triangular shape, I'm going to give it a more ovoid shape, because we have to look for both the canals. So I'm going to extend it more incisally so that I don't miss out, and I'm going to make it more ovoid or oval in shape. As you can see, this has a single canal. I have gone slightly more, you see, I have gone slightly more lingually as well, to rule out for the possibility of another canal. So this canal always lies in the center. Same now after irrigation, once you are able to see the orifice, now what you have to do is, now you can use your 10 number or 15 number file and create a patency through the canal. 10 number file, we can use a 15 number file or a 10 number. If 10 number or 15 numbers have resistance, then you can go to 8 number file as well. So now I'm going to place my file in the orifice and easily glides. Now you can continue with the pushing the file, but with very little or no apical pressure. You just have to place the file passively. The word is passive, so till wherever it goes. Now at this point, we can take a radiograph to check for the working length. The steps will be similar to the ones that we did for mandibular, for maxillary central incisor. So initial binding file. Now which technique to choose is another question. So in mandibular central, as I already said, that for maxillary central incisor, we should go for step back technique followed by lateral compaction. In mandibular central incisor, since they are more, they are smaller in size, so we can also go for pro-taper technique. But if we are using pro-taper technique, we have to remember that we do not use extensively high sizes like F3 or F4. We should use smaller sizes, try to finish it up by F1. If not F1, then we can go for 25-4% rotary system and obturate with 25-4% GP. So you can follow a single cone obturation technique if you want, Or if you feel the canal is wide and initial binding file is 20 or 25, then you can use step back also in the same tooth. Since the apical foramen is quite small, if you see, so this is the apical foramen, if you see, it's not that large. So we should increase the size of this apical foramen up to 3 to 4 sizes of the initial binding file. So if you see, this is, if you can appreciate the apical foramen from where I have just pushed my file out. So this is 15 number file is actually 15 number file is actually like small for this. So maybe the initial binding file will be 20 number in this case. So if the initial binding file is 20 number, then we can increase it up to 40 K file or 35K file that can act as the master file, and then you can do the step back up to 70 or 80. So the only problem with step back technique is that because we are using larger files for step back, sometimes it can create micro fractures in the root. So that is why we've now shifted to rotary, and we are shifting to lesser files these days. So if you want, in this case, if I have to do pro taper technique, then probably I'll go for an F2. But if the initial binding file is 8 number or 10 number, then we can end it up at F1 finishing file, and then obturate with the GP. So the obturation technique, the working length remains the same for all the teeth. We can use an apex locator. I'm going to show you how an apex locator looks like. So this is our 4th generation apex locator. So this apex locator is a very significant instrument in endodontics, because the first file that we put in the canal, we should actually measure it with the apex locator. Now how does this work? So it has this screen where you can see there is green, this is the greenish color, and this upper one is white in color, and then this indicates the root. So once, and it also has a lip clip which has to be inserted into the angle of the mouth, and this part has to touch your file. So what we do is, when we place the file, we let the file slowly glide passively till wherever it is going, and then you have to keep your stopper at the reference point and use your other end of this apex locator and touch it. So what happens is, if your length is correct, if it is going up to the minor diameter, it will come in the green zone. So if you hear the beep in the green zone, that means you are correct. But if there is the beeping is heard in the white zone, that means you are short of your minor diameter and you need to increase the working length. And if you see a red sign over here, that shows that you have gone beyond the minor diameter. So this apex locator is a very good indicator of your working length, and it will also help to save your time, as you do not have to take unnecessary radiographs of the same patient. So during working, you get an initial idea about your working length, then you can conveniently go for your shaping and cleaning. Choice of the technique depends on you again, whether you want to go for pro taper technique or you want to go for lateral compaction. Again, it all depends on the initial binding file, and obturation technique is almost the same. And lastly, I would just say that we need to follow the protocols correctly. The access opening should not be very narrow. At the same time, it should not be very wide. You should be able to see your orifice clearly. So I'm in the later part of the video, I will be discussing the variations of mandibular central incisor. Here you can see one orifice in the center. I will show you another tooth which has 2 canals in the center, so that you can easily appreciate the difference between the two.